Thank you for tuning in to the Practical Preservation Podcast. Please take a moment to visit our website, practicalpreservationservices.com, for additional information and tips to help you restore your historical home. If you've not done so, please subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, or SoundCloud, and also like us on Facebook. Welcome to the Practical Preservation Podcast, hosted by Danielle and Jonathan Kepperling. Kepperling Preservation Services is a family-owned business based in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, dedicated to the preservation of our built architectural history for today's use as well as future generations. Our weekly podcast provides you with expert advice specific to the unique needs of renovating a historic home, educating by sharing our From the Trenches preservation knowledge and our guests' expertise, balancing modern needs while maintaining the historical significance, character, and beauty of your period home.
Today on the Practical Preservation Podcast, I have Molly Ricks with me from Baltimore Heritage. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
So tell me about your background.
Sure. So, and I'm happy to be here. I just want to say thanks again.
You're welcome.
I currently am the I already messed up my title. I'm the Community Engagement and Communications Manager for Baltimore Heritage. And we are Baltimore's citywide historic preservation nonprofit. I can tell you a little bit about me and then maybe a little bit more about Baltimore Heritage.
Yeah, definitely.
Great. So I got my bachelor's and master's degree in history at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. We usually call it UMBC. And my thesis was on, I'll tell you the title. It was called Buried Memories, the Evolving Commemoration of Black and White Burial Grounds at Prominent Virginia Plantations.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Thanks. I mean, it's been something that I've been really interested in long before I went to graduate school. And I looked at primarily Mount Vernon and Monticello and a little bit Montpelier. Those three sites, which are the plantations of George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and James Madison, are somewhat unique in that all of they have white burial grounds on those sites and burial grounds of the enslaved communities.
Yes.
And so it was a really fascinating look. And obviously those sites have been commemorated very differently over the years.
Right. Yeah. Just saying that, I don't mean to interrupt your train of thought, but I've been to Mount Vernon. Monticello's on my list, but it is interesting standing at the Black burial ground where they have, in the 20s, they were servants. In the 80s, they were, they had another label, and now we're finally acknowledging that they were enslaved. It's interesting to see the different memorials there.
Absolutely. And when you're at Mount Vernon, when you're looking at the tomb of George Washington, your back is literally turned to the enslaved community's burial ground. They're very close. And so that's interesting too. There's a lot there. So we could talk about that all day, but maybe for another podcast.
Yes. I would be interested.
Yeah, totally. So I've always been interested in history. I love meeting people. I love talking to people, and I get to do both at Baltimore Heritage. Before this job at Baltimore Heritage, I actually worked for the U.S. Army, and I was researching post-World War II Army intelligence in Germany, which was great. I mean, we're talking espionage and sabotage and all that sort of stuff. And I got to look at really cool documents at the National Archives. And although I loved that job, I found that there were a few things missing. It was solitary work. And I felt like I wasn't sure who I was helping. And I wanted to be around people. And so when that contract ended, I searched for a job where I could meet lots of different kinds of people and research all different kinds of history. And for me, that's what preservation really is. It's about people, and it's about delving into all different kinds of history. One building can have so many stories to tell.
Yes, yeah. Multiple
stories.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm lucky I found this job, and I get to work with people all over Baltimore. And I think, I mean, I honestly don't know how helpful I'm being, but it's really nice to be able to, talk with lots of different kinds of people.
I agree. Yeah, I
So.
agree. Yeah, I enjoy that too. That's one of the reasons that I really enjoy doing the podcast, is because I get to meet people that I might not otherwise meet, in my normal everyday work life. So that's one of the things that I really enjoy about it. So I completely understand. And I struggle, like if I'm home all day and like I don't have meetings or anything, my husband comes home and I just start bombarding him. He's like, I know you didn't have anybody around you today because
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's one of the best parts of my day is when I get to drive around, get out of the office and drive around and talk to people. It's really wonderful. And I guess I should say, can I talk a little bit about Baltimore Heritage?
Oh, sure.
Right. Just because I want to talk about, I think sometimes people think historic preservation is all about like wallpaper and that sort of thing, like very like pragmatic. And I think at Baltimore Heritage, we try to take a larger, preservation is about, it serves people, it serves neighborhoods and communities. And so Baltimore Heritage got started in 1960, and it was an all-volunteer organization, and it was started in response to urban renewal projects in Baltimore. One of the earliest projects that Baltimore Heritage was a part of was stopping a highway that was going to be built through several historic neighborhoods around the Inner Harbor, which are today some, lovely cobblestone streets and quaint row houses. And because of Baltimore Heritage, and it was a coalition, there were many other organizations too. That's why we have the Baltimore Harbor Tunnel and not a highway. And so that's how it got started. It didn't get a full-time employee until my boss, the executive director of Baltimore Heritage, was hired in 2003. And we're still a very small organization. We have two full-time employees and a part-time researcher. And our goal is really to preserve and protect Baltimore's historic places and neighborhoods and communities. And so we do that in a few ways. We do it through advocacy, and I can talk more about that in a second, but we also do it through educational programming. Our sort of guide is we believe that awareness leads to understanding and understanding leads to preservation. So the more we can talk about places, the better.
Right. I agree with you. And that's really interesting. So I do consulting work in addition to our construction work. And I started as the preservation consultant for the Lancaster County Preservation Trust almost 3 years ago now. And in August, the board asked me to be the part-time executive director, but the organization started in the 60s as a response to urban renewal. So I think that was a huge inflection point for preservation organizations, especially at a grassroots level. They wanted to tear down a building that at the time did not look great. And it was, but they figured out that it was where Andrew Ellicott had trained Meriwether Lewis in surveying before they went, before Lewis and Clark went west. And so they got it on the National Register, they got national, and then they actually built this parking garage around it. Like we are like, there is walls of the parking garage on two sides. And then the other side are streets. But, I think that was really an important moment. And I'm glad that people were willing to stand up and say, hey, maybe we don't have to tear down everything that was old. We can still allow, development to happen. We can put a tunnel in rather than going above ground. Like there are options.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it really is a testament to the ingenuity of both preservation advocates and also engineers and civil servants and that sort of thing to figure out a way that worked. And I think it is also really interesting. I mean, it's the advent of the car, and the car was sort of like this new invention that was taking over we were building,
the world was being built for people in cars rather than people walking.
Yeah. And it's interesting to see that that's not always how we approach things today.
Right. Yeah. People really thought that was, it does. The trends come and go, but right now the trend is towards walkable, which I think is a good thing.
Totally.
So you talked to me a little bit about Baltimore Heritage. Is there anything else that you wanted to share about it before I start talking to you about their program or your programs?
Sure. I mean, I guess I'll just say, one of the great things I think about Baltimore Heritage is that along with all the programs we do, one of our big things is to promote what other groups are already doing. We firmly believe that we don't need to reinvent the wheel. And Baltimore has a lot of great neighborhood groups and CDCs and associations, nonprofits that are doing things in their own neighborhoods. And so, I feel very lucky that I get to be working with a lot of these different groups. One I want to totally plug right now is the Laurel Cemetery Memorial Task Force. So this was Laurel Cemetery is in Northeast Baltimore, and it was incorporated in 1852 as Baltimore's first non-denominational cemetery for African Americans. And it was huge. And there's a lot of, really important people were buried there. And then, big families were buried there and everybody in between.
Right.
And unfortunately, in the 1950s, through a series of suspect legal acquisitions, the property was taken over and paved over, and the memory of this cemetery was really lost. And a group was formed a few years ago to tell the story of Laurel Cemetery, to eventually get a memorial on the site, which is now a parking lot and it's a shopping center. So that group has been doing wonderful things. And when I started at Baltimore Heritage, I was able to join the group, and it's just been so wonderful. Again, meeting people from all over the city, professors, civic, lawyers, all different kinds of people. And that's been really fun. And we get to do that all over the city. And then Baltimore Heritage can promote what this great work they're already doing. I mean, hours of research and volunteer work have gone into that group. So that's been really fun. And we get to do it with, LGBTQ history and Native American history, the Lumbee tribe in East Baltimore. So that's been really fun too. But I think we really want to tell the story of all Baltimoreans.
Yeah, I think that's really important, because I see that as a trend within preservation, advocacy, and education, because if people see themselves in the story, they're more invested. And then you also see the contributions of everyone. Also, I don't know if you've read Slavery in the North. Anybody who listens to the podcast knows that I refer to it relatively frequently, because he's a social scientist that actually didn't know he was writing a preservation book, but he talks about collective memory and how when people move away, people die, you lose those memories. But he talks a lot about grave sites, so you might be interested in that.
Thank you. I will look that up.
Yeah. He was on the podcast too, if you wanted to listen.
Oh, great. Okay.
But he talks a lot about these cemeteries that are, that are rediscovered, and then, telling those stories, commemorating, and the communities coming together to tell those stories. So I think you would enjoy that, and it might be helpful with some of the things that they have done advocacy wise in Philadelphia, where he's based.
Wonderful.
That might be helpful for your group too.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. So tell me about some of your programs.
Sure. So really, over the last 20 years, Baltimore Heritage has led over 500 heritage tours around Baltimore. And we do a lot of one-off tours, what we consider behind-the-scenes tours of things like Lexington Market, or when I started before the pandemic, we did one at the Patapsco wastewater treatment plant. So really broadening, what we do in terms of, someone might say, well, what does that have to do with history? And we say, well, it's in a neighborhood and it's in a community, and it impacts people. And so that's why we're going to talk about it. And it was fascinating, and it was smelly, but it was fascinating. And then we do other things, again, partnering with groups. Baltimore Heritage every year with a lot of other historians and museums in the Baltimore City area. We put on an unconference to talk about Baltimore's history, bring in archivists come, and students come, and professors come, and the person who just likes Baltimore history comes.
Right.
And we talk about history, and it's a really great networking event. And a couple of years ago at this event, that's every September at the Baltimore Museum of Industry, a couple of years ago, I met some representatives from the Henrietta Lacks Legacy Group.
Oh, yeah.
They gave a great presentation. And so we were able to partner with them on a walking tour. Henrietta Lacks lived just outside Baltimore City.
Oh, really? I was not aware of that.
Yeah, yeah. It's a historic African-American neighborhood called Turner's Station. And when it was there that she went to Hopkins and discovered she had cervical cancer. And there is a really active group, this Henrietta Lacks Legacy Group, that is telling her story and telling the story of Turner Station. So we were able to partner with them and do a great walking tour. So we do walking tours. And then we also have recurring walking tours of different historic neighborhoods and homes and cemeteries. And then one of the things we did when the pandemic started, we rely on our walking tours. It brings in a lot of our organizational funding.
Right.
And when the pandemic started, we were like, uh-oh, what do we do now? And we started a series kind of just off the cuff called 5-Minute Histories, where my colleague and supervisor, John Hopkins, visits different places in Baltimore and talks about the history and significance of those places. He just kind of stands in front of them, films on his daughter's old iPhone, and talks about them. He sends them to me, and I edit and produce them and find historic images to put in there. And to date, we've done over 200 videos.
Oh, that's really awesome.
Yeah, they were unexpectedly popular. We really didn't know what we were doing. I am trained as a historian, not as a video editor. And I always say to people, like, if I can figure out iMovie on a Mac, anybody can. So that's been really fun, and we're still rolling with those.
Now, are you, I think that's a really great idea. Now I'm just curious from a revenue standpoint, like, have you found sponsors or?
We have really what we do. We have had a couple sponsors. We have really just been shocked about the generosity of people. I mean, they like the series. We didn't go into it asking for money. We just were like, we're going to do this. And people were very generous with their donations. And and it just seems like, we're providing a service and they enjoy it and they want it to continue. And we're happy to continue to do it. And it's nice to have a little bit of money. We partner with a lot of groups to try and tell different stories. And we can, we partnered with, I don't know if this is known outside of Baltimore, but we have something called Mr. Trash Wheel in Baltimore.
Oh, no, I'm not aware of that.
Okay. So Mr. Trash Wheel is like a huge contraption, and I feel like I'm going to butcher it, and I should probably have those people be talking about it. But it's a huge contraption at the end of, it started with one at the end of the Jones Falls, which is a stream that flows into the Inner Harbor, and it picks up trash, and it's like run on solar power, and it kind of looks like he's eating the trash. And so someone had the idea of putting googly eyes on him, and it's anyways, and he has like a social media account. It's pretty cool. For Mr. Trash Wheel. And anyways, so we did a video with Mr. Trash Wheel where we talked about the history of the Jones Falls and how Baltimore really grew up around it. Yeah. And then they talked about trash. And it was really awesome. So those videos, we reach many different audiences, which we weren't expecting to do, but we love how accessible that history is for people.
Yes. Yeah. I think, and that's probably something that people have seen and people are curious about, but they might not know the backstory.
Exactly. Yeah. So I
think that's really, really great. I was so impressed during, at this, 2 years ago, when everything was still locked down, and how creative people got, either small business owners, but also nonprofits. I thought that was really, not that it was easy, but it was really a great thing that everybody was so, trying things out just to see what they could do to continue the connections.
Absolutely. And it's crazy because I don't think we would have done this had we not been forced to. Right. And it's been so wonderful. We've met so many people. Idea. Yeah. And so we're like, of course the pandemic is terrible for so many reasons, but the silver lining is that we did this. And so it's great. If it's okay with you, I'll just mention a couple other things.
Sure. Yeah, definitely.
Again, when the pandemic started, we partnered with a friendly organization of ours called, it's not ours, sorry, a friendly group called the Baltimore Architecture Foundation. And together we started doing virtual histories, which were short presentations every Friday, where we invited someone to come talk about something Baltimore related. And and it was all virtual. And then we would have questions, and it would be over in about half an hour. And we're still doing that every other Friday. So if you know anybody, but that's been really, really fun. And it's brought, again, unexpectedly, we have people coming in from like, signing on from Britain and New Zealand and Montreal.
Oh, that's exciting.
And we're like, whoa, this is cool. We're getting, former Baltimoreans that now live in Washington State and that sort of thing. So that's been awesome. And then we have a couple like ongoing programs that we do. We have something called the Legacy Businesses Program that highlights businesses that have been in the same family for over 100 years. And similarly, we have the Centennial Homes Program that features homes that have been in the same family for over 100 years. And then we have, we help groups like the Adopt a Monument program that people can sign up to sponsor the protection of monuments around Baltimore, certain monuments. We can get into that later, but so yeah, and then continuing to do preservation work with other groups in the area and amplify their stories. We have friends who started something called the Herring Run Community Archaeology, and they do archaeology and talk about the enslaved community that lived in Baltimore's Herring Run Park.
Okay.
And so just all sorts of groups we're trying to, we love working with groups all over the city.
Yeah, I think that that's great because it kind of helps everybody. You're not duplicating efforts, but it also helps everybody to amplify the story and the whatever, whatever you're promoting.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So do you work then on like preservation, like let's say a building's in danger? Do you get involved with those kind of things also?
Absolutely. And actually a big one that we have right now, and maybe this is going into some of your other questions, but, in Baltimore, I would love to be able to save every row house that we've got, and it's just not possible, but there are certain ones that we do put our foot down about. And one of them right now is a group of alley houses on Sarah Ann Street. And this is in West Baltimore in a neighborhood called Poppleton. And these houses were built in the 1870s and have been continuously inhabited by African Americans since that time. And these houses are really cute. They've been very well maintained. They're all painted different pastel colors. And the city, in conjunction with a developer, wants to tear them down. And the most important part about this is they're inhabited still. Like people live in these houses and they want to tear them down, and it's really crazy. And so there's a group called Organized Poppleton that has been working really hard to get the story out about this, and then also to get it protected as a certified local district in an effort to. And yesterday we found out, my Baltimore Heritage's executive director and a lot of other people showed up at the Commission on Historical and Architectural Preservation and lobbied to have this as a certified local district. And yesterday we found out it was. So that's very good news. Yeah, it's really awesome. And it's really a testament to this group, Organized Poppleton. And, but yeah, so there's definitely places like that we're like, no, this should not be, we will stand in front of the bulldozer kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we definitely do that. Another one that was before my time, but it was something that Baltimore Heritage really fought for was saving something called the Hebrew Orphan Asylum in West Baltimore. And it is the oldest still standing Hebrew Orphan Asylum in the country. And after, for a number of years, it was an orphan asylum, and then it was a hospital, and then it was vacant for a long time. And Baltimore Heritage got involved to save this beautiful, big castle-looking building. And finally, about a couple of years ago, everything sort of came together, and it's now called the Center for Healthy Living, and it's for the neighborhood. And this neighborhood really needed a healthcare clinic, and so it's sort of there's this beautiful building that can honor the history of the Jewish orphans that were there, and it can serve the community today. And that's what we want. That's the ultimate goal. And so that's kind of a success story that we always try to tell.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And I always say, some people are so rigid and just don't think, they don't even think adaptive reuse is okay. And I'm like, no, a useful building is one that will be preserved. If it's not useful anymore, it's not going to be, nobody cares then. So I am not, I have definite preservation principles, but I am very okay with keeping buildings useful.
Yes, I
Yeah.
mean, I think that's a way to appreciate them even more. And the people that renovated and rehabbed the building did a wonderful job keeping historic elements and brightening the building. And that also, I should say, that was a coalition. Baltimore Heritage was certainly a part of that, but it was really the community association, the Coppin Heights CDC that led that effort and did an amazing job.
Oh, very good. So, and I guess this kind of leads us into why is historic preservation important?
Yeah. And this is something I feel like we've been dancing around this whole time. We really feel like it's a way to tell, this, first of all, it's more than just like saving old buildings.
Right.
It's doing that, but it's telling the stories of all Baltimoreans, and it's helping revitalize communities. So there's significant places in Baltimore that tell stories about communities that are no longer there. And for instance, we have a Chinatown in Baltimore that really it has been, it's now much more of like a little Ethiopia, but
Yeah.
there's, but the buildings remain. And so we can tell multiple stories. We can talk
Right.
about immigration in Baltimore and Chinatown, and then we can also talk about Ethiopian immigration and everything in between. So these layers of history that one building can tell. And I would say it's more than just stories, though. Also, it's about, supporting neighborhood revitalization and stewardship of parks and open spaces and sustainability. I mean, I'm really looking at like, why build a new building when we have this perfectly good building already here?
Right. Yeah. And I think that that's really important. I think that that's one of the things that preservationists and the people who are like the green building people need to like work together better with, because they have the same goals. They just don't realize it.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like, wait, we can do this. We don't have to reinvent.
And you don't have to build a new building that has, the certification that says it's green. You can like reuse a building and, keep all those building materials.
Right, exactly. And what beautiful building materials they are.
Oh,
I mean,
goodness.
it's wonderful stuff. So yeah, I think fundamentally preservation is about people and empowering people who are fighting to keep neighborhoods together and strong and trying to make where they live better. Yes. And I think that's if we can help with that, that's kind of where we come from with historic preservation.
I think that's really great that you're not just focused on buildings, you're focused on the people connected to the buildings, because I think that's where people feel the connection.
Totally.
Yeah,
totally.
So what trends or challenges do you see in preservation?
Yeah. I think I alluded to this too. I mean, so one thing is it can be hard to convince people that certain buildings should be saved, even if it does cost money or it can be expensive, that it's worth it. And that, I think back to Jane Jacobs and, the death and life in American cities, and how having different kinds of architecture and different kinds of buildings and just diversity of that is important in itself. And that it brings a richness to communities, but also, so funding in general, that can be the different, especially in the nonprofit world.
Oh, yeah.
And I already said this, but like, if it were up to me, I would totally save every building that I could. I mean, if I had all the money in the world, but it can be hard. It can be hard to say these. I mean, there's some beautiful row homes in Baltimore that it's just to buy the home. It would be negative. There's like negative reasons to buy the home because there's liens and that sort of thing. Yeah. So it can be tricky. And then once you do rehab and make it nice, how do we bring people here and that sort of thing? So that can be really tricky. But I think the other thing about Baltimore, which I think is also a plus, is just the sheer capacity of historic places in Baltimore. I mean, there's just so many. So in Baltimore, 90 neighborhoods are officially designated as historic. And this is more than any other city except New York. And New York is huge. And right. So, and then Baltimore also has 205 buildings on its historic landmark list. And that's a ton.
Yes.
And the thing is, there are dozens more neighborhoods and and places that should be designated.
Mhm.
And so that can be daunting, and we're doing the best we can. And it's sort of like you have to go to we sort of go to which one is being threatened next.
Right.
And then can we get that one designated and do something with that? But so I think sometimes the task is daunting, but it's certainly, we have our work cut out for us.
Yes. Yes. You won't be done anytime soon. You're not going to work yourself out of a job.
Right. That is true. But it's sort of like, I wish I could go, save all these buildings right now. And, there's also, I'm sure in your construction knowledge, like things like, I wish we could just get a roof on that building to stop the water from coming in.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Yeah. And some things are just so simple. And it's like, if you just do that, we can we can figure out the rest. But if you keep letting it deteriorate, it's going to be a lot worse. It's going to be a lot more expensive. You're complaining about the expense now.
We talked about that in Baltimore. Basically we call it demolition by neglect.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And if we could just get a roof on that building, then things could be different.
Yeah.
So.
And now in Lancaster City, they have actually put in our ordinance that if you're demolishing a building by neglect, they will not grant a demolition permit.
Wow.
But that, I know that's fairly recent. But I think that would stop a lot of that if people knew that they can't just go in and say, oh, look how bad it is. I've owned it for 20 years,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and in Baltimore, sometimes it can be hard to figure out who owns the row house still. It can be really difficult to figure out who even the owner is with some of these places, but that's a really interesting tactic.
Yeah. But, and I think that, that's one of the things that I always talk about is like, preservation is so local that if you can get your local municipality to put some of these things in the ordinance, it helps. And Lancaster County is over 60 different municipalities, and all of them have different preservation ordinances. So it's kind of crazy.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That is one thing I'm really grateful for, that Baltimore has CHAP, which is its commission on historic and architectural preservation, and that's been a really wonderful sort of stopgap to make sure that things like demolitions are not happening and without permission.
Right.
Most of the time. That still does happen occasionally.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Things, so.
Yeah, it's a struggle, but yeah, it helps if those ordinances are there and they're followed. So is there before we go into like the wrap up questions, is there anything that you thought of while we were talking that maybe I didn't ask you that you want to share?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think you're very thorough.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Well, is there anything you'd like to promote?
I think I would love if you're ever in Baltimore, check us out for a walking tour. We'd love to show you around. Check out our 5-minute histories videos. They're all on YouTube and on our website. And we're always looking for suggestions. So we love working with our audience and chatting with people and giving shout outs. Would love to hear from everybody.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And then how can our listeners contact you?
Sure, you can email me. My email is ricks, RICKS @baltimoreheritage.org. Or you can go on our website and all of our contact info is on there too.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you so much. I'll make sure that your the links to the website and your email are on our site where the podcast is hosted in case somebody's listening and wants to find it. But
wonderful.
Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Practical Preservation Podcast. The resources discussed during this episode are on our website at practicalpreservationservices.com/podcast. If you received value from this episode and know someone else that will get value from it as well, please share it with them. Join us next week for another episode of the Practical Preservation Podcast. For more information on restoring your historic home, visit practicalpreservationservices.com.